That afternoon, after clocking out from work in Boston, Evelyn Carter trudged through the familiar lobby of her apartment building, balancing a stack of reports and a six-pack of discount soda from the office market. She had no idea she was about to open an envelope more explosive than any budget meeting she'd ever endured. Among the usual junk mail, utility bills, pizza coupons, and bank promos was a thick envelope stamped Lexington First Mortgage, addressed directly to Evelyn. She assumed it was real estate advertising like so many others, but the moment she tore it open, she froze. Inside was a stack of mortgage documents over 30 pages long. The property address, 14, Ashcraft Lane, Lexington. MA loan amount, $480,000. Borrower name, Evelyn Carter. And the signature at the bottom of every page. Hers, or one that looked eerily like hers. Evelyn had never heard of that house. She'd never applied for any loan. Her first emotion wasn't anger. It was numbness, like she'd stumbled into a distorted dream where logic no longer applied. Was this fraud, or worse? Had someone she knew done this? Her heart pounding, she Googled the address, a 3-bedroom home with a pale brick front, backyard, and 2-car garage on a quiet suburban street, 25 minutes from Boston. Not cheap, not normal. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She called the mortgage company but only reached voicemail. She left a message, "I believe a mortgage has been fraudulently filed in my name." Then she sat in silence, the documents resting in her lap like a slab of stone, knowing in her gut this wasn't a clerical error. This was the beginning of a war. Growing up in the quiet town of West Hartford, Connecticut, Evelyn Carter believed she was simply the strong one in the family. She got good grades, followed the rules, and never gave her parents, George and Diane Carter, a reason to worry. But as she grew older, Evelyn realized that being strong wasn't a compliment. It was a requirement in a household where fairness had never been part of the equation. Her younger sister, Madison, for years her junior, was the polar opposite, sensitive, fragile, and treated like a porcelain doll. When Evelyn scored an A+ in geometry, her mother would ask why it wasn't perfect. But when Madison barely scraped a C in biology, they threw her a small celebration because she tried. In the Carter household, equality wasn't the goal. Evelyn got a second-hand bicycle for her 16th birthday. Madison got a brand new Toyota Corolla the day she turned 16. Evelyn worked weekends at a local coffee shop to save for college. Madison was told to focus on being young, no job, no responsibilities, no expectations. Even as an adult, Evelyn clung to the idea that if she worked hard enough, succeeded enough, her parents would finally see her as worthy of the same love they poured so freely onto Madison. But the opposite happened. The more Evelyn thrived, the more her family saw her as a resource, and the more Madison floundered, the more they rushed to shield her from consequences. Evelyn never forgot the time her mother said, "Madison's not like you. You're strong. She needs us." It sounded like compassion, but to Evelyn, it was proof of a painful truth. She was never allowed to be weak. Because no one ever planned to catch her if she fell. When Evelyn Carter stepped onto the campus of Northeastern University in Boston, she had nothing but a partial scholarship, a hand-me-down suitcase, and the quiet resolve not to be a burden on anyone. No financial support from her parents, no safety net, no monthly allowance like her sister Madison always received. Evelyn told herself, if she wanted a better life, she'd have to build it from scratch. She worked 20 hours a week at the campus library, sometimes picking up weekend shifts at a nearby cafe. At night, she studied under the dull yellow light of her dorm desk, surviving on ramen noodles and bargain cereal. During the holidays, when her classmates went home, Evelyn picked up extra shifts, not out of ambition but necessity. For all 4 years of college, she never complained. There was no time for that. Every dollar saved was one step closer to freedom. While Madison bounced between schools, from an art institute in Vermont to a community college in Maine, then back to New York to rediscover herself, Evelyn stayed the course. One direction, one goal. After graduating, she landed an entry-level analyst role at a small investment firm. The pay was low, the office cramped, and she shared an apartment with 3 roommates and no washer-dryer, but she stayed the course. Every paycheck went towards student loans and an emergency fund. And still, those ever-present packets of instant noodles. It took 6 years. Countless sleepless nights, and more than a few breakdowns before Evelyn finally made the last payment on her student loans. There was no celebration. She simply redirected that money into her savings account. For Evelyn, Freedom didn't arrive with applause. It came through discipline, grit, and the unwavering belief that she owed no one for her success. As soon as Evelyn started earning a real income, the calls from her family began, at first sweet and casual, then increasingly patterned and pressuring. "It's just this one time," Sis Madison would say, and their mother Diane would chime in. "You're so good with money, honey. A few hundred isn't much to you, is it?" It started with car repairs. Madison's old Camry wouldn't start, and she needed it for work. Evelyn wired her $450. Then it was a missed phone bill, an urgent dental copay, or a flight home for Thanksgiving. Each request came wrapped in the language of family, and each time, Evelyn told herself just this once. But just once never stopped. It became the expectation. Every time Madison stumbled, the whole family looked to Evelyn as if her success was communal property. On Madison's birthday, Evelyn gave her a spa voucher. Madison frowned. "I thought you were covering my Cancun trip." The air around Evelyn. I began to feel heavy. Every text from her mother triggered anxiety. Every conversation with her father ended in a favor. It wasn't love, it was obligation. An unspoken contract between the successful daughter and the one who always needed saving. She had once believed family meant support, but Evelyn slowly realized to them, she wasn't family. She was an ATM with a heartbeat. And the worst part, she had allowed it out of guilt, out of a fear of being the difficult one. But the price of being agreeable was a quiet kind of depletion, one no one else in the family seemed to notice or care about. The next morning, after a sleepless night staring at the mysterious mortgage documents, Evelyn woke up groggy, her eyes bloodshot, coffee doing nothing. She was about to call the mortgage company when her phone buzzed. Her mother, Diane, was calling with a breezy tone. "Did you get the paperwork?" Evelyn froze. "What paperwork?" Her voice shook. "The house in Lexington," Diane said, like it was an online delivery. "We should all sit down over dinner and talk. Madison will be there too." "Wait," Evelyn snapped. "Did someone take out a mortgage in my name?" "Don't be dramatic, Evelyn. It's a family matter," her mother replied calmly before hanging up. Evelyn drifted through the rest of her day in a fog. That evening, she drove the 2 hours to her childhood home in West Hartford. Her parents and Madison were already waiting, seated like executives at a boardroom table. Her father, George, got straight to it. "We bought a house for Madison. She couldn't qualify on her own, so we used your name. You're the most financially stable." Evelyn's entire body stiffened. "You used my identity without asking me." "We had your old tax returns, and your mother's always been good at mimicking your signature," George said almost proudly. Evelyn trembled with rage. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a calculated financial violation. She wasn't family anymore. She was an asset, a tool to be used, no permission required. The atmosphere in the West Hartford home that evening was so thick, Evelyn felt like she was stepping into a tribunal, not a family dinner. Her mother Diane poured wine for everyone without asking. Madison curled up at the corner of the couch, avoiding eye contact. Her father, George, motioned toward the armchair across from them like he was about to lead a boardroom negotiation. "Evelyn," George began, his voice solemn, "we know this is a lot to take in, but this is what's best for the family." Evelyn crossed her arms. "What exactly does that mean?" "Your sister's been paying outrageous rent in Cambridge," Diane interjected. "With rates the way they are, it just made sense to buy. And since Madison can't qualify for a mortgage, you used my name," Evelyn said, her voice cutting. "Let's not be dramatic," George replied. "You're doing well, Evelyn. You've got stable income. This loan would barely touch your monthly budget." Madison finally spoke, her voice soft but needling. "You're always talking about investments and financial freedom. I figured helping me wouldn't be a big deal." Evelyn clenched her fists. She couldn't believe they were spinning a felony into an act of kindness. "I'm not paying a dime on that house," she said, rising to her feet, "and I'm reporting this as identity fraud." Silence fell like a bomb. Her mother's expression hardened. "If you walk out that door tonight, don't bother calling yourself part of this family." Evelyn didn't flinch. "If being part of this family means being exploited and staying quiet, I'd rather be a stranger." After that fateful dinner, Evelyn was erased from her family's orbit. The daily check-ins from her mother stopped cold, replaced by a chilling silence. Texts went unanswered, calls were ignored. Even the annual BBQ invitation from Aunt Susan somehow missed her name. She thought the cold shoulder might be temporary, a phase of anger. But within days, Madison posted a tearful video on Facebook, titled, "My sister left me homeless over money." It spread like wildfire through the extended family. And then came the phone calls. A cousin Evelyn hadn't spoken to in 7 years messaged her, "Can't believe you're suing your own parents. They raised you, and this is how you repay them. Over a house." But nothing stunned her more than the call from her office the following day. Her mother had shown up in the lobby, sobbing, demanding to see her. Security had to escort her out. The next morning, Evelyn's boss forwarded her an email from her father titled "Concerns about Evelyn's mental stability." It wasn't disappointment. It was a full-blown takedown campaign. Evelyn was no longer their daughter. She was a traitor, a threat to the family unit that needed to be silenced. She began blocking phone numbers, blocking emails. She even considered moving apartments. Every time she logged onto social media, she saw another melodramatic post from Madison. Eyes red and puffy, spinning a sob story about being abandoned by her sister, complete with a GoFundMe link for emergency housing support. The truth was nowhere in sight, but in the eyes of her family and the small town where she was raised, Evelyn was no longer the hardworking, self-made daughter. She was the selfish one who dared to say no. After reeling from the betrayal, Evelyn realized she couldn't stay passive. Silence had only emboldened them, and if she didn't act soon, that fraudulent mortgage would drag her under financially and professionally. She called Jessica Miller, her college friend who now worked as a paralegal at a firm specializing in financial crimes. After hearing the story, Jessica paused for a beat, then said, "Evelyn, this isn't just wrong, it's criminal. They've broken federal law." Jessica connected her with Rachel Goldstein, a Boston-based attorney who specialized in family financial disputes. Rachel didn't sugarcoat anything. First step, documentation, messages, emails, forged signatures, everything. Evelyn spent 3 sleepless nights digging through her phone and inbox for evidence. Rachel guided her through sending formal notices to the mortgage lender, the county property office, and preparing a potential police report. Even if Evelyn wasn't yet sure she wanted to pursue criminal charges, for now, the priority was legally separating Evelyn from the mortgage before any payments became due. 3 days later, her parents received a certified letter from Rachel's office, a clear declaration that Evelyn was not responsible for the loan and that legal steps were underway to prove identity fraud. The backlash came fast. Her parents bombarded her company, messaged her friends, and texted from dozens of different numbers. Evelyn began recording calls, saving every message and screenshot. She never thought she'd need a lawyer to protect herself from her own family, but Evelyn was no longer the daughter trying to earn their love. She was a woman reclaiming her name, her finances, and the respect she should have had all along. That morning, Evelyn walked into Middlesex County Court in a deep navy suit and unwavering eyes. At her side was attorney Rachel Goldstein, carrying a thick binder of evidence. Evelyn had wanted to give up many times during the prep, but today she wasn't afraid. She was here to speak the truth. Across the aisle sat George and Diane Carter, composed and dressed as if for Sunday service. Madison was there too, teary-eyed, avoiding her sister's gaze. Their attorney, a silver-haired man in glasses named Peterson, opened the hearing. "This isn't fraud. It's a family misunderstanding, an unspoken commitment." Rachel rose calmly. "We have messages, emails, and clear evidence that the signature was forged. This isn't just unethical, it's illegal." Evelyn was called to testify. Her voice held steady as she spoke of her journey through college, her student loans, her silent sacrifices, and how her success had become something her family treated as a debt to be collected. Every eye in the room was on her, including that of Judge Reeves, known for her no-nonsense demeanor. The turning point came when Rachel introduced text messages between George and Diane. "Don't ask her, just move forward." Evelyn's always been too independent to agree. The room went silent when Diane took the stand. She cried, saying, "I only did what any mother would do to help her daughter get a home." But no one was buying it. The mask of a sacrificial family had slipped. Evelyn left the courtroom that day, unsure of what the ruling would be. But she knew one thing for certain. The truth had finally been spoken right in front of them, and, more importantly, in front of herself. 9 days after the hearing, Evelyn was deep in a budget meeting at work when her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "The ruling's in. Call me when you can." Her hand shook as she dialed. Rachel answered quickly, "We won." Case dismissed, and the judge ordered them to pay part of your legal fees. Evelyn leaned against the wall, tears slipping down her cheeks. It's not tears of joy but relief. Finally, she was free from the forged mortgage, free from the invisible grip her family had kept her in for years. But victory didn't look like she had imagined. There was no celebration, no arms to hug her in triumph. Instead, there was a voicemail from Madison at 2:13 a.m. Mom's had 2 panic attacks. Dad's talking bankruptcy. You destroyed this family. Hope your cold little apartment keeps you warm. Evelyn didn't respond. She deleted it after one listen. Not because it didn't hurt, but because she now knew the family she lost was never really hers to begin with. 3 days later, she received an unexpected email from Uncle Mark, her father's estranged brother. You're not wrong. Your father did this to me too. You're not alone. For the first time, Evelyn felt seen by someone in the bloodline. She sat alone in her quiet apartment, staring out at the rain-soaked balcony. Boston was gray and still, and Evelyn whispered more to herself than anyone else. I won, not just the lawsuit. I won the right to live my life on my terms. The weeks following the court's verdict were strangely quiet for Evelyn. No more lawsuits, no more threatening calls, also no one left to talk to about her family. Without the old naive optimism, in its place came a hollow stillness she hadn't expected. She started with small steps, going back to yoga, reworking her personal finance plan, and even reopening her social media accounts after months of silence. But the true turning point came when Evelyn decided to join a support group for survivors of family financial abuse. At one meeting, she shared her story not to seek pity but to untangle the pain. When she got to the part where her parents sued her, the room went still. A middle-aged woman beside her gently took her hand and said, "You're not the only one, and now you've survived." That sentence cracked something open inside Evelyn. For the first time, she felt not alone. From these strangers, a new kind of family emerged, people not bound by blood but by empathy, honesty, and love, without strings attached. She also began reconnecting with relationships that mattered. Jessica, the friend who led her to Rachel, the attorney. Mark, the uncle who had been quietly discarded by her father. And co-workers who had supported her quietly but unwaveringly. Evelyn once thought freedom meant being alone, but now she understood real freedom is the power to choose who gets a place in your life and who doesn't. A year after the court case, Evelyn sat in a quiet cafe in Cambridge across from a young woman named Rachel, whose eyes were dark with exhaustion, and hands trembled as she unfolded a stack of bank documents. My parents took out a car loan in my name, she said. They said I owe them for raising me. Evelyn no longer felt the outrage she once did, only recognition. She listened, nodded, and said softly, "You're not wrong for protecting yourself, and you're not alone." After that conversation, Evelyn walked back. Her apartment filled with a strange new feeling, peace. Not because life was perfect, but because she had finally stopped trying to save people who didn't want to change and started saving herself. In her healing, she learned that not everyone deserves a place in your life. That setting boundaries isn't betrayal, it's how you preserve your humanity. She once believed doing the right thing meant sacrificing. Now she knew the right thing is not carrying the consequences of others, especially when they expect it from you by default. Evelyn didn't build an empire, didn't become famous, didn't take revenge. But she left behind something more valuable, a living example of what it means to break a toxic cycle and choose a life that honors your truth. She used to be the responsible sister. Now she was a woman who understood this family isn't built on silence or sustained by blind sacrifice. True family is where you get to be yourself and not have to pay for it.